morning, everybody. Welcome to the Japan Roadshow of Jejala Indonesia.
Jejala Indonesia is a venture capital networking program crafted by the Indonesian Ministry of Communication and Informatics.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Singapore Roadshow of Jejala, Indonesia.
Good morning and welcome to all venture capitalists attending the Singapore Roadshow of Jejala, Indonesia. The Minister of Communication and Informatics crafted Jejala Indonesia to strengthen the current effort to empower the digital startup ecosystem of Indonesia.
Good morning, everybody, especially in Europe. Good evening for people in Indonesia.
The Ministry of Communication and Informatics crafted Jejala Indonesia to strengthen the current effort to empower digital startup ecosystem of Indonesia.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the USA Roadshow of Jejala, Indonesia. We're going to have the main event of Jejala Indonesia, which is the Indonesian Startup Market Insight held in Dubai World Expo. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the final roadshow of Jejala, Indonesia, where we have several roadshows already from Japan, Singapore, the USA, Europe, and now we are in Dubai, Uni Arab Emirates. Before we start the session, let's start with the singing of our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Wow, it's a very wonderful afternoon in Indonesia, I suppose, and we are now live in Expo 2020 Dubai. This session is an exciting one for me, specifically because we are live from Expo 2020 Dubai. I'm Zahra Damarifa, partner at Impact 2, and I will be your moderator for today's event. And I see we have a lot of audiences today from the Fiji side, and we also have some startups today. So thank you so much for coming to our last roadshow for Jejala, Indonesia. In today's roadshow, it is kind of special because we will hear two keynote sessions from our distinguished speakers and a panel discussion that hopefully can bring light to the future of Indonesia's digital startup ecosystem. And we will answer your questions as well about the current landscape, about Indonesia's startup investment. And we have excellent speakers today that will be speaking on behalf of different aspects of the startup ecosystem in Indonesia. With us today, please welcome Mr. Samuel Abriani Pangerapan, Director General of Informatics Applications, Ministry of Communications, and Informatics of Republic of Indonesia. We also have Mr. Odo R.M. Manuhutu, Deputy Coordinating Minister for Tourism and Creative Economy at Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. We have Mr. Italo Gani, Venture Partner at Ease Ventures. We also have Mr. Adrian Gilarandi, CEO and co-founder of Practice, a data-powered supply chain solution for direct-to-consumer brands. And lastly, but not least, we have Mr. Williams, CTO and co-founder of Ferry Hubs, a data and verification platform for Indonesian fintech companies. So I would like to explain a bit about what is Jejala Indonesia to everybody here if you haven't really understood what is Jejala Indonesia. So Jejala Indonesia is a venture capital networking program crafted by the Indonesian Ministry of Communications and Informatics for 30 early stage curated tech startups that have been curated based on their traction, their founder's profile, their market size, and their local defensibility. And the program consists of roadshows and a month of virtual matchmaking that starts tomorrow, actually, until the 28th of January 2021. And venture capitals, if you want to register to be one of our VC partners, you still can do it by accessing bit.ly/Jejala registration, capital Jejala capital R for registration. And we are open to all investors that wants to connect, acknowledge, and build networks with Indonesian curated early stage tech startups. And we hope that this program can result in investment opportunities in the future. So without further ado, I won't take your time any longer. We will start with an opening keynote speech by Mr. Samuel Pangerapan to share us on the Indonesian startup market insight and how actually the Indonesian ministry supports the Indonesian ecosystem, especially the startup ecosystem. Mr. Pangerapan, the floor is yours.
Welcome and thank you everyone for coming to Indonesia Pavilion. We hope that this event can be an excellent time for us to share insight on Indonesia digital transformation. Through the Expo 2020 Dubai, Indonesia will bring the theme of creating future from Indonesia to the world, where we hope that we can share our vision for its sustainable future. And we also hope that this event can open new opportunity to work together. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our efforts that we are currently enact to face technological advancement is through the accelerated our national digital transformation process, which focus on the four strategic pillars such as digital infrastructure, digital government, digital economy, and digital society. Digital infrastructure is important foundation in digital transformation. That is why Indonesia government through the Ministry of Communication and Informatics speed up the process of deployment of digital infrastructure in every village in Indonesia. In this case, we build BTS and buy multiple function satellite to give equal internet access even for the people in the remote area. In the digital government pillar, we are strive to develop innovation that will support digitalization of the government. To accelerate the digitalization of government, we are deploying electronic government system to make better quality of public services. Other than that, we also create a single source of truth for government data called Satu Data Indonesia. In enhancing public service, we are also promoting local government to start implementing their smart city program. At this moment, we have already 141 cities and regencies that are already to develop their smart city program by utilization advanced technology. We are also actively providing policy that aim to support the development of the digital economy in Indonesia, such as policy on electronic system operator, certification authority, and personal data protection, in purpose of providing easy on doing business in Indonesia. Before I talk further on digital economy pillar, please allow me to share a few things on Indonesia current digital landscape and economy potential. With Indonesia internet user reaching more than 200 billion, the value of Indonesia digital economy is reported reach $70 billion in 2021 and expected to reach $146 billion in 2025, with the e-commerce sectors becoming the main driver for Indonesia with year-on-year of growth 52%. In addition to that, Indonesia is the fifth country with the highest growth in startup after US, India, UK, and Canada. Currently, we have 1 decacorn and 8 unicorn in Indonesia, and 4 of the newest unicorn achieved status in 2021 during pandemic. To support development of startup in varying stages, the government have set several programs in place. We have Gerakan Nasional 1000 Startups Digital for early stage startup, Startup Studio Indonesia for startup that aim to accelerate startup to achieve their product market fit and scale up in the future. Finally, for late stage startup, Hub.id is designed as a matchmaking program between startup and industry stakeholders. Distinguished guests, people are the heart of digital innovation. We are serious in preparing and developing the next generation of digital talent professional through mandatory school curriculum and digital talent scholarship. For market digital readiness, we have digital literacy program called Gerakan Nasional Literasi Digital. This program educates Indonesia to adopt technologies and build a safe and ethical digital culture. This effort is aimed to make the Indonesian more mature in adopting a new digital technology. Ladies and gentlemen and honorable guests, this 4 pillar makes up Indonesia digital transformation roadmap in developing the National Digital Ecosystem for Indonesia Digital Nation. In the process of accelerating Indonesia digital transformation, we put forward the principle of nobody left behind. Therefore, in our effort to achieve this vision, we cannot work alone. We need to collaboration with various stakeholders. Most importantly, we are very open to all parties who are wishing to invest and collaborate with us in realizing the vision of Indonesia Digital Nation. Once again, thank you very much for your time and attention. We hope that you enjoy Indonesia Pavilion and the rest of agenda and other information that we have in store. Terima kasih.
Rais.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Pangrapan, for the eye-opening keynote presentation as we'll learn how Indonesia's government specifically is really keen on supporting the startup ecosystem through different measures that improve the infrastructure, economy, society, and e-governance. And now, we want to welcome our next keynote speech from Mr. Odo R.M. Manuhutu to give us a keynote speech on Indonesian startup investment landscape moving forward. Hi, I think Mr. Odo is coming from Bali right now and he will give his presentation. So, Odo, the floor is yours.
Hello from Indonesia to all distinguished participants in Dubai and elsewhere. I would like to thank the Ministry of Communication and Informatics for organizing this event. It is timely as we are stepping on the second day of 2022. It is the year that we will emerge triumphantly in defeating this C19 pandemic. I must say that the twin lamplights of technology and innovation are the lights at the end of the tunnel. We are cautiously optimistic of the 2022 outlook. Indonesia is the growing powerhouse of Southeast Asia. Indonesia's market potential, high GDP, and large share of Goldman and 11 equity funds regarded us as part of the newly coined emerging market acronym as MIS. Mexico, Indonesia, South Korea, and Turkey. A curious name, I must say. I hope through this meeting we can unveil the myths that might prevent you to see clearly what Indonesia has to offer. Our 270 million population, half of which come from the urban area with high buying powers. This number alone represents more than 43% population of ASEAN, which, if considered as a bloc, is equivalent to the world's 5th largest economy. So investing in Indonesia is a first step towards planting a strong root in the Southeast Asia region. With the current expected trajectory of growth in 2030, Indonesia will become the 7th largest economy in the world. An additional 70% of the overall population, or 90 million young Indonesians, will also join the global consuming class in 2030, a huge market with untapped potential. To put it in perspective, it is 15 times larger than the whole population of Singapore. Indonesia offers valuable opportunity for local startups in creating new, exciting products and services. They understand the local demand and its ensuing requirements. The nemesis of innovation is the lack of understanding of the local market. So strategic partnership with them is a must. Now, it is crucial for the government to provide the right environment for them to grow and scale. We understand that to accelerate digital and economic transformation, our role is to enlighten, enable, and enlarge. First is to enlighten. I hope to give you an insight into Indonesia's startup ecosystem development, potential, and investment opportunities, and other speakers will do so. Second is to enable. We want to create possibilities and open the access for Indonesian startups to scale up and have a stronger standing, particularly from capital support. It is all because entrepreneurs and their companies are vital to revitalizing our economy. Third is to enlarge. By building a strong and supportive ecosystem for startups, we want them to thrive and prosper and become the job and welfare creation generator, be that for the urban or rural areas. Their success is our success. They will enable us to reduce poverty and build sustainable economic development. Throughout our history, Indonesia has been proven as a resilient nation. You can see at the slide, during the ASEAN's financial crisis in 1997, 1998, we were able to have an robust economic growth of average of more than 5% per year between 2000 to 2010. During the recent Delta variant surge, quick responses from the government, such as mobility reduction and vaccination program, have allowed Indonesia to flatten the case faster than its regional counterparts, even around the world. As of the last year, 77% of the targeted population are already vaccinated, and we can see the result now. The sign of economic resilience is also projected through a moderate steady growth of 3.7% last year and over more than 5% forecasted for 2022. So the outlook is positive. The same strong resilience is also demonstrated in the tech startup sector. Despite the market uncertainty to the pandemic, the number of digital startups have grown four times, from 1,400 in 2017 to be more than 5,500 in 2021, not to mention those that are still in the ideation stage. Such an increase is a clear statement of our young population desire and capacity to be part of the solution. They are the engine of our growth, and as such, we invite you to come and invest in Asia. We are equally passionate in 2022 to promote the game industry into the game industry. Last year, the market of our game industry is $1.7 billion and is projected to become $2.5 billion by 2023. Now, Indonesia, Jakarta, we know is internationally recognized as to have a supportive ecosystem for startup growth. It is marked third in the top 100 emerging startup ecosystem. However, one should note that other mid-sized cities such as Bandung, Surabaya, Batam, Pekanbaru, and Makassar are growing faster than Jakarta with over 7% growth rate per year. And this is an opportunity for not only Indonesian and founders, but also for foreign investors. Since the pandemic, Indonesia also gathered more than 20 million new digital consumers, whereas 72% are from non-metropolitan areas, which means that most of them are now coming from outside Jakarta and the Surabaya area. As the market grows, so do the numbers of startup players and capitals coming. The 2020 Internet economy, as you see in the slide report, indicates that the volume and capitalization are growing year by year. We can also observe that despite the ongoing pandemic through 2020 and 2021, the number of funding and the number of capitals coming to Indonesia startup continue to rise. The deal value in the first semester of 2021 alone has already surpassed the deal value of each of the last 4 years. We can imagine in 2022, 2023, until 2030, it will keep on going. And Indonesia currently has 8 unicorns and 1 decacorn tech startup. 4 of these unicorns, Ajaib, JNT, Kopi Kenangan, and Zendit, achieved the status in 2021 from logistics to coffee. What it means, if you want to have good coffee, you need a good logistics sector. So the market respond to that. And also Zendit is a rather interesting study case. The Indonesian-based payment infrastructure provider servicing company for SMEs to some of the region's largest tech players. One of their biggest segment is SMEs, with around more than 10,000 SME signups in their platform. This number depicts the strong potential of fintech infrastructure and SME-focused startups in Indonesia. On SME, we are at full steam in increasing the number of SME using the digital platform. 30 of the 64 million SME will join the digital ecosystem platform by 2024. In 2020, there were only 8 million of them joining the platform. By 2021, there is an increase of more than 100%. Now there are 17 million of them using the platform. So we are on track to promote for them more than 30 million to join the digital platform by 2023 or 2024. This is due part of the national campaign of Bangga Buat Indonesia, or in English term is proudly created Indonesia. So this is a collaboration not only among government agency, but also with the digital platform and other stakeholders. Furthermore, I want to highlight the untapped potential of startup development. Following the commitment to reduce 29% of carbon emission by 2030, President Joko Widodo signed a regulation that introduced carbon trading mechanism. We are optimistic that the number carbon reduction can be optimized to 41% with the intervention of technology and investment. Thus, we support this event. We hope there will be more startups that deal with environmental issues. With the emerging awareness and the need to have more positive environmental behavior, the demand for startups who can cater for the urgent matter is also rising. Elon Musk recently volunteered 100 million as part of the X Prize competition to carbon capture startup. At the same time, Bill Gates also funded carbon engineering. I hope that this initiative can also address the issue of carbon. And the use of technology such as artificial intelligence and Internet of Things could play a significant role in tracking and calculating carbon emission, developing the action platform, and outlining strategic action to reduce environmental impacts. Therefore, the development of energy startups are much needed to accelerate the achievement of our 2030 target. Indonesia has all the potential by becoming as the Minister Luhut said, the number one country in terms, the superpower country in terms of carbon trading, because we have our forest, our water provides all those opportunities. Overall, Indonesia's tech startup ecosystem is getting more investable year by year. The number of quality startups and market readiness has increased in the past few years, accelerated by the COVID-19 situation. The growing spirit of collaboration within the startup ecosystem can further be seen through creating co-products, acquiring and merging startups, and numerous angel investment from prominent unicorn startup founders. We can forecast a new wave of startup entrepreneurs that aim to solve the challenges in various untapped sectors and decentralized areas of Indonesia. In conclusion, I'd like to say Indonesia's digital and economic transformation is accelerating in 2021, and it will be more in 2022 and beyond. We are here to enlighten and enable and enlarge. For that, hesitation is not an option for you. The very least available options is to take a keen interest to invest before the PNC or local IAS is leaving the Bali Maritime Port towards 2022 and beyond. Having said, thank you, shukran, terima kasih, merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manuhutu, for the very optimistic remarks on the future of Indonesia startup investment. We see a lot of study cases right there. Zendet was mentioned, and we also see a lot of Kopi Kenangan. There are very new unicorns existing in Indonesia, so it's very interesting for Indonesia in 2022. And we hope that this collaborative spirit that was mentioned and the new wave of startups will form a more solid foundation for our startup ecosystem in Indonesia. So we have learned a bit about the overview about Indonesia's digital economy, the government support to the startup ecosystem, and the future of our startup investment. And now we will deep dive into two up and rising startup industries in Indonesia. So we have a lot of speakers that will be speaking today on regards of that. We will discuss the fintech infrastructure and SME supply chain. I would like to welcome our panelists, Adrian Gilrandi, hi.
Zara.
William, hi. And we also have in our studio in Bali, Italo Gani and Mr. Odo Manuhutu. So probably we can say hi first to our other speakers in Bali, right?
Hi.
Hi to the speakers in Bali. Hello.
Italo.
Hi.
Okay, good afternoon, Indonesia. Good noon for our existing audience here in Dubai. If the audience have any questions, please feel free to click the raise hand button or text at the chat box, and we will have a direct Q&A session after the panel discussion if you have any questions. And also, just a reminder that our matchmaking program will start tomorrow. The Jublia platform will be open tomorrow, so we can actually access there. And I will remind you again, like how you can register to our FISI matchmaking. So, wow, I have talked a lot, so I want you to talk right now. I want to ask a bit about your companies. I want to ask a bit about practice. I also want to ask a bit about
Dubai sama yang di Bali.
sorry, I can hear sounds from our Zoom. Okay, yes. If any of the audiences have any questions, right? So, first, Adrian, I want to ask some questions. So, what is practice actually? SME supply chain. It's a rather very new in space. I think it's rarely heard.
Depends.
Also,
Not really, I guess.
So, can you share what is practice to us?
Okay, first of all, hi Zahra. Hi everyone. Thank you for the opportunity and having me here in Dubai Expo. I'm Adrian Gilrandi. People used to call me Agil. I'm co-founder and CEO of Practice. Talking about business, what is Practice? Practice is actually a data-powered supply chain company that we manage and help direct-to-consumer brands or D2C brands managing their back-end operations, start from sourcing and production, logistic, until the order management, because we see that the fast growing of D2C market, but we believe that D2C players need a lot of help in terms of managing their back-end operations. So I think
Okay, so it's dealing with the back-end operations for this D2C market, which is very big in Indonesia and it's growing so fast. I want to move on first to Very Hubs. Hi, William. So, yeah, fintech infrastructure. Fintech is very big right now. Can you share what are you building for the fintech infrastructure right now in Very Hubs?
Sure, Jahra. Thank you for having me. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm William, CTO and co-founder of VeryHubs. Basically, VeryHubs is a data and verification platform for fintech in Indonesia. We help institutions who want to build a financial services to be easy to focus on their products, and we help them with their verifications. So we provide various kinds of verifications based on artificial intelligence, like face recognition, liveness detections, and also we help them do verifications on their phone number, WhatsApp number, and also their identity verifications. So yeah, basically, VeryHubs help them to solve their verification problems.
Right. Okay. Understood. So thank you so much for explaining us. But I want to ask Italo first. Hi, Italo. So
Hi, Zara.
this is very interesting. We have SME supply chain, fintech infrastructure. I know that your East Ventures has actually invested in a lot of companies, including fintech infrastructure also and SME supply chain focused startups. Can you share a bit like on, firstly, probably about East Ventures, but also about the portfolios that you have regarding that as well?
Yeah, hi. I'm Itao Gani. I'm the venture partner of East Ventures. So East Ventures is actually one of the most active VC in Southeast Asia. We've been investing in 300 startups since 2009. So some of the biggest startups like Tokopedia, Traveloka, Ruang Guru, Sociala, we invest in these companies. So related to your question about SMEs, I think for the last, since actually Tokopedia started 2009 until now, actually the SMEs now are more digitally literacy are more ready than used to before. And plus with the COVID, I think it forced the people to understand better how to use the internet. So I think SME now is going to be one of the most important part in our investment. I think one of the biggest investment also in us is Makari, is a SMEs companies. So I think from the commerce, the logistics, the data play, the fintech play like Zendit is also one of the EV investment. Is actually is quite important since the demand, the pain point of SMEs is there. The digital literacy of the SMEs also is much better than 10 years ago. So I think SME is going to be very interesting market to invest.
Great. So yes, before we start our session, so we have also Mr. Odo there. I think he has given a very well presentation about the future of startup investment. So I think we're gonna jump into the questions and answer from my side because I have a lot of questions about SME. I have a lot of questions for fintech. Probably I want to ask first to back to Italo, actually. I want to ask about, you have mentioned that about the logistic part, the SME part, the fintech part that you have invested. So do you view SME as a big market to be tapped into by Indonesian startups? As we know that the data that SME fills majority of our business in Indonesia. What do you think, Italo?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, SME is a very important uh, market in Indonesia, and we've been investing many sector related to SMEs from the payment point of view, logistic point of view, data, commerce, and we believe there is so many kind of SMEs. There's so many sector of SMEs. There's so many category of SMEs. So I think, and I don't think one startup can solve all the problem of SMEs. So I think there's a lot of sector that going to be invested by us on this startup ecosystem.
Moving forward, I want to ask first to Adrian, because Adrian, you have actually tackled a lot of SMEs problems. I want to ask, so from your experience, what are the challenges of the MSMEs that can be actually solved by tech startups presence? I'm sure that a lot of problems is occurring every day in running their businesses, but what is the problems that can be solved by tech startups presence?
Okay, thank you for the question. So that's interesting. Yeah. By definition, SME is small by nature. One of the upside of being small is they can be very agile, can be adaptive. That is why we understand that SME is one of the economic backbone of Indonesia. But on the other side, having a very small volume, they are actually fragmented and scattered. They're having problem to get access to good and reliable partners, especially for managing their operations. So that is why we practice, we tap into the space. We know exactly what the pain points of SME, and we're trying to help managing their operations, supply chain management through the digitalization and collaborations. Yeah. So, and one of the belief that we believe from the beginning that to succeed, SME need to be cannot be alone. SME need to collaborate. SME need to be open mind. Yeah.
I see. So, what if you can be more specific, the problems that you feel being faced by SMEs, what exactly?
Yeah, in terms of supply chain management, so it's actually, it seems that supply chain management is like a very high level thing according to SME, but we know exactly SME is very important, but there's complex. It needs a very good infrastructure and technology enhancement for managing the supply chain in a good level. And it is impossible for each SME building those technology. That is why, but we believe if SME want to going to the next level, they need to manage the supply chain better, right? And for an example, the problem and challenges that SME happens to the SME at the moment are still in the fundamental and basic level, according to supply chain management, such as just they fail to make a good forecasting, utilizing data to manage their assortment distribution. So it leads to some typical problems like overproductions, dead stocks, and it makes the SME is very difficult to grow and scale.
So it's actually very fundamental problems that really need solving in order to scale up their businesses, right? So, but as mentioned by Italo before, like SME is really wide. You know, we have like the smaller, the micro ones, the small ones, the medium, and some of them are the one that can be considered like large enterprises, but also medium. It's not clear. So, can you share what type of MSME is actually facing the supply chain issues that you mentioned before?
I see. It's always hard to categorize or define or try to classify what type of SMEs. But from our perspective and supply chain management perspective, at least there are the SMEs in Indonesia could be divided into two different types. The first one are those who are good at selling the products. They usually have a capability to understand the market, know the product design, but they have lacking expertise of operations, producing. So that is why it leads to the second type of SME, to those who are good in producing the products. So in supply chain perspective, those two different SMEs have different pain points. So we need to understand each pain points to solve it.
Right. So it's actually really wide that there are a lot of problems in the SME. There are the one that produces the product. There's the one that probably like market the product, have the capabilities to do so. And it's very interesting to actually help both to succeed because it's actually the one produces and the one will sell the product, right? So it's very
And the
interesting.
one who bridge those collaborate together is missing. That is why we're
that's
here.
why you're there. Okay, great. So I have a question first for Mr. Manuhutu, Mr. Odo Manuhutu. So I know a lot of MSMEs were hit hard by the pandemic situation in Indonesia. So do you think startups were able to support the MSMEs through the situation? And if do you think that they succeed in doing that? How do you think was that?
It was my answer is that first, yes, they can be. That's for sure. Second is for me personally, I think whether you call it SME or startup, at the end of the day, they are similar in a way that as long as they are job creation, they are participate in creating jobs and welfare creations, then they are part of the solution. That's what we see. So coming back to your question about if SMEs can, or the startup ecosystem can be part of that solution to help SME, I think both work the same ways. And the question is more from our side, from the government, is how do we help the SMEs? How do we help the startups to grow and to cater the interests of the population? Now, what we do, the government, is that first is we create regulations to lessen the bureaucratic red tapes. That's why the government come up with the omnibus law. Second is that through funding. Last year, we together with four of the largest, the four government banks, we provide more than 16 trillion rupiahs by 2024. That's around 1.2 billion US dollar credit to SMEs. That is the kind of investment, the kind of credit that you can get it less than 15 minutes. That's a collaboration between Indonesians, Himbara, Indonesians state-owned companies, and the startup, including Tokopedia and so forth. Third, we see that I think what we need, and also Pak Italo can help us. If you look at the number of Indonesian e-commerce, more than 90% are located based in Jakarta. Now we see more and more, there are more e-commerce startups coming out from a lot of regions. One we see is in the Natuna area. And we want that kind of startup to grow so that our economy is more diversified. Second is that the pressure on Java on Java is lessened by having Sumatra, the Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Papua, Maluku, Bali, and the Lombok area become the engine of growth of Indonesia, and the resilience of our economy. If you see in the 1997 crisis and the 2007 crisis, the sector that survived is the SME. So the question is how the startup using technology can help the SMEs to grow further. We have a good case with Bank Indonesia. Bank Indonesia, they are providing a lot of assistance to SMEs. There is always issue. People always say that SMEs, they are lacking the skill, the necessary funding, and what they need mostly is fund. People have the perception that they need funding. Apparently, what they needed most is not the funding, but coaching and also training. So the role of the startup industry or the East Venture can do is that to invest more on how to train and coach the SMEs, and we see that SMEs that are being coached and trained for over a year, they are more resilient than those are being coached or trained only for a few days or a few weeks. So the issue is more about sustainability and focus on how assisting them.
Interesting. So a lot of startups can actually tap into supporting the coaching and the sustainability of these SMEs in regards to their probably their knowledge and how to run the business is very interesting. So probably I want to move first to the fintech because we have two different sectors we're discussing today. But I believe this is really relating because in order to create a very seamless commerce, you have to get a very good seamless payment as well, seamless way of doing transactions in regards to the financial aspect. So I want to ask first, I know you have been actually succeeding to go to YC as one of the very few startups in Indonesia that actually, graduating from YC. So congratulations, very happy for that. So can you share a bit about the experience first before we move forward to the real question about the fintech?
Sure, sure. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, basically, we fortunately got accepted by YC and graduated in 2021. And actually, it's the 5 times of application that
Wow.
we have done to YC, and we got accepted on the last try in the 5th times. And what we have learned from applying to YC and from graduation from YC is that we need to build some products that the customers or the people that really wants and really want to implement on their at least applications or on their daily lives. So from the journey from the first applications to the 5 applications, actually what we've done is to refine our products so that it can satisfy the people needs, the customers needs, and somehow we got some tractions from the
Somehow
product.
you get
Yeah.
traction. Somehow, okay.
Somehow, and then yeah, I think YC see the progress, and yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's the reason that why they accept us.
Interesting. So the market fit is really important. So I want to ask, because you built an end-to-end verification platform, and I read that you actually aim to be one-stop verification in Southeast Asia. And most of your clients, I know, is in the financial space, though I know some of your clients also in the e-commerce, marketplace, hospitality, and many more, right? So how big of a problem is verification in Indonesia? Because you mentioned that you get the market fit and the traction. So especially for fintech, what is the problem is actually happening in verification space?
Yeah, especially because of the pandemic, the problems of verifications, digital verifications becomes more important, and fortunately, yeah, we solved the problems at the right timing. Like because of the pandemic, everyone needs the digital verification, and we have the solutions. And usually, the other competitors focus on like one type of verifications, such as identity verifications or data verifications. But we see that actually, when we are trying to build some fintech product or fintech services, there are lots of verifications that people need, such as SMS OTP or phone number verifications, credit scoring, and also the face recognitions. And we haven't found that in Indonesia there is a platform that provides those types of verifications. And because of that, yeah, we built the products, and we saw that there is a big opportunity on that area, and we help the product, the fintech, to connect with those types of corresponding partners.
Interesting. So you also have some fintech using your products as well. So we were discussing about fintech right now. So how do you see the future of fintech, especially the fintech infrastructure? There's verification in that. And what else do you see? And probably another question from me about the market acceptance towards digital payment especially. So what do you see about that?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty interesting that in US there are like 10,000 fintechs in one country, but in Indonesia, what I found is that the number of fintechs is only around 300. So there are like 30 times opportunity in Indonesia to become like in the US, fintech space in the US. And recently I found that there are more various types of fintechs coming up in 2021, 2022. For example, yesterday I saw a news.
Yeah, I saw in the news about up banks, right?
About up banks,
Yeah.
yes. And the interesting thing is that they focus on very specific needs, like influencer and creators. They try to build a digital bank services for influencer and creators. And from that perspective, I see that maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, there will be more fintech services for specific
Niche, right?
Yeah, for example, digital bank for kids, digital bank for family, or
Nice.
digital bank for women. And because of that, I see that the number of opportunity that fintech has in Indonesia is pretty big, and we very hubs trying to help them to build these kinds of fintech services so that they can focus on the products and the infrastructures can rely on very hubs.
Interesting. That's why you can actually provide your services for any kind of fintech, and fintech is really growing. I want to ask first to Italo from the perspective of a VC. So, as a representative from the investor side, fintech is always a hot thing since like 5 years ago. So the products have been shifting a lot from, firstly P2P lending was really hot, and then now we are shifting into payment gateways, and then we're moving as well to neobanks, digital banks, and the fintech infrastructure is really growing as well. What is your take on this? What do you see? Before, I think William mentioned about more niche digital banks, neobanks. What do you see, Italo, in the fintech space right now and the future?
Yeah, I think along with the growth of the startups and along with the growth of the digital services, I think fintech becoming very important. I think a remote payment and, for example, what William did is really focus, build a startup to do the verification. I think that's actually quite unique in Indonesia, and I think that's actually very important because there is so many digital ecosystem or digital startup that required a verification platform, but they don't have the time to build by themselves or the fund. By having like companies like Ferry Hubs, they can use Ferry Hubs. So I think that's a very unique approach that William built. Yeah. And I think fintech become more interesting because there'll be more needs on the fintechs, and I think each sector also different sector have a different needs on financial support. Yeah, and we're going to see many interesting startup on fintech in the near futures.
Interesting. So before we move on to another question from the SME and the fintech, I think we have a question from one of our investors today coming online through Zoom. Tashin, if you want to ask your questions directly, you are allowed to ask. Can you ask directly right now? Can you open your video and your Zoom? We can present you actually in the Zoom also, so we can see your face. Do you want to ask directly, Tashin?
Sure
From
thing.
Hoff Capital. Hi, yes.
Hi guys, thank you
Yes,
so
yes.
much for putting together such a great event. I think one question from my end would be, what's one thing that foreign investors misunderstand about the Indonesia opportunity?
Yeah, I think this is a question for everybody here, right? So what is actually one thing that foreign investors may not understand or misunderstood regarding the Indonesian opportunity, especially in startups? I want to ask this question first to a VC person in the, in our group of speakers today, probably Italo, because you have, a lot of investment in EV already. What type of thing that probably foreign investors have misunderstood about our market, about our opportunity in the Indonesian startups?
Yeah, I think Indonesia is very unique. You need to be in Indonesia to understand Indonesia. And many probably, Indonesia is not only Jakarta. I think as mentioned Pak Odo before, we have a 17,000 island. We have so many other opportunity in other cities as well. And I think it's growing very rapidly also in other cities. And I think and the opportunities from all these unique markets of Indonesia, unique characteristics of Indonesia, it is quite unique. For example, I think Gojek is the first company who built this bike sharing because bike is from the word ojek, and it's something that built in Indonesia, this bike sharing app. Yeah, so I think many that investor need to see the unique problem of Indonesia, and that's actually is very interesting market. Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned about a little bit about how we are actually not just Jakarta, because there's a misconception that is always happening. Indonesia is, oh, Jakarta or Bali, Jakarta, and that's not just it. The market is really big. So probably from the players themselves, the startup founders, what type of misconception do you view when you speak probably to foreign investors? What kind of misconception that probably our foreign investors today need to understand about Indonesia? Probably starting from Adrian, sorry.
Yeah, I think one of the misleading or misconceptions about Indonesia is always be seen as a market, just the consumers because of our bonus demographic. But in addition to what Itola says that yeah, we have a very huge consumers and market, but the one who can make the products and service and to know better what is the pain points of the customers is Indonesian people and Indonesian startup. So venture capitals need to invest to Indonesian company to provide tailor-made solutions for Indonesian needs. So I think that's the important one.
Is really the market is really unique, that actually the one that needs to build the product is actually also Indonesian, right? Yeah. What do you think, William, about that statement? And also, if you can have any ideas on what other misconceptions that always happens.
Yeah, totally agree with Agil because like we see in Indonesia, there are lots of people, various people, and the behavior of each people are different. Like people in Sumatra and in Irian might have different behavior, different cultures. And if we want to build some solution for those people, we have to like refine differently for each people. And it only can be done by specific by the people who grow on that area. Sometimes we could not use any assumptions like in US or in Europe this might work, but in Indonesia that solution or services might not work. So yeah, really agree that usually foreign investors should like invest on local companies with local founders.
Interesting. So yeah, that's the idea of Indonesian. I think Indonesia is very unique. We have a lot of cultures within culture, right? So you deploy your product in probably an island with a different island can have a very different way of iterations and so on. So that's why Indonesian market actually will be very, the solution can be really tailor-made by Indonesian founders. Very interesting. So hopefully it answers your question, Tashin. Thank you for asking. So if anybody wants to ask again, kindly just raise your hand or chat box, just chat in the chat box and we'll answer your question directly. So going back to our focus for today about fintech and the SME. I'm still asking about fintech actually, and we were just asking to Italo. But I think I want to ask to Mr. Odo Manuhutu regarding our fintech. And fintech is being regulated in Indonesia. And in the perspective of regulation, so how does Indonesian government regulate this space? So how important is the presence of OJK in this regard? And does it allow the startup to actually grow? What do you think about this, Mr. Odo?
Thank you. I think we want to prevent a situation of the WWW, that is Wild Wild West. I think that's not what we want in Indonesia. We want Indonesia that people invest in Indonesia and they have certainty, and we want to protect our consumer. Thus, the OJK, the Indonesia Financial Services, have closed down more than 3,000 illegal fintech, and that is the one side. On the other side, there are more than 300 fintech that is operating in Indonesia. And I think the key question, the main issue is how the government create an enabling environment for the fintech to grow and to address the issue of the unbankable. And if you see a lot of the Indonesian banking sector, namely from either the private or state-owned companies, they are more and more investing in the fintech industry, which means that there is this untapped potential that we are working on. And coming back to your earlier questions about Indonesia, what is the what is the how people misperceive about Indonesia. I think there are two issues. First, we always think that Indonesia is a monolithic. It's one singular entity that is only composed of one or two groups. Indonesia is more composed of more than 700 ethnic groups, and that what means? It means there are a lot of ideas, a lot of potential to solve issues. And I always remember what people say: when there are problems, there's a solution. It means that we have 1,001 million problems to solve, which means there are more than 1 million startups that can participate in solving our problem. Second is second, I think the misperception is the government in Indonesia is slow and passive when it comes to problem. And if you look, I think if you look at the bigger picture, the government come up with the omnibus law, trying to cut the red tapes. And second is, if you think that our government is slow in responding, please come to our office and work with us, and you see that we are faster sometimes than the private sector in solving a lot of the issues.
Interesting. That's a misconception that happens with a lot of investors when we ask. Then they ask to us like, but in regards to regulation, the government are they slow? It's no. Yeah, they're working really hard as well, just like the private sector. So thank you for guiding us through that misconception, Mr. Manuhutu. So probably going back to the fintech. So this is perhaps for William. I read that you actually serve two kind of users. I read like in one of your news that you serve those who have traditional bank accounts and the unbanked people. So are there any challenges in tapping into these users, especially unbanked people? Because unbanked sometimes have the connotation of not digitally literate. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's really literally true because we face some challenging when we serve the unbanked users. But what we are trying to solve with that challenge is by collaborations with unbanked startups, like for example, PayFast, Credibook. They help us to like provide seamless verifications to their users, and by providing the educations for those unbanked people, the digital literacy, the way that they can use digital verifications is much more seamless. It's easier for them after several times of educations. And the second way that we've done is by do some research to build the product that is easy for them, that imitates their behaviors without the digital platforms. And we try to build similar services, digital services that really imitates their daily behavior.
Their daily behaviors. That's why only Indonesian founders that actually can create specific solutions for Indonesian market. Because of that, you have to really know what kind of actually the way that you do conduct things every day and try to imitate that in the digital space. I believe you have a lot of also, Mr. Adrian, you also have like probably the same issues on tapping into MSME market. A lot of them probably are, I don't know, digital literate or not. Can you like clarify on that? And also, there must be challenges that you find as well. Can you share the challenges on tapping into the market?
Yeah, I think SME is always hard and difficult dealing business with SMEs, because the one thing is they're a lot and they're fragmented, scattered all across nations. And the most important thing, the hardest part to enforce digitalizations through SME is they used to work with unstructured and unstandardized process. When we talk about digitalization, everything must be structured, standardized, and it's very difficult to enforce them to do so. But recently, supported by the rapid growth of e-commerce, there are a lot of local players, small SME turn out to be a very huge company, and in many sectors, they create a lot of success stories. So the stories is like spread so fast, and it opens up and makes the SME players more open-minded recently.
Word of mouth. So each SME is like, this is actually Indonesia really works, the word of mouth.
Yeah.
Because Indonesians tend to share a lot of things because if they feel like the product is really useful for them, they will share to others. That's why when discussing about net promoter score or those kind of things, when you word of mouth is really working in Indonesia, right? So very interesting. But I know the scope of SME is really wide. You know, there are like numerous segments and you can divide the categorization into a lot of things, F&B, fashion. We also have like probably the ones that is on the services side, SMEs on the services side. So do you think there are still untapped potentials in the market alone? And if you can predict what kind of untapped market in the SME space that is not yet tapped into by the startups right now?
Yeah, I think I don't see there is untapped potential for SMEs. Everything is already covered. But the thing is, a lot of startups tend to make one medicine for all problems. Like they feel that every SMEs needs this service. Apparently, it's not. So every SMEs in different sectors, different core competencies, as I mentioned, as I said earlier, that for example, SMEs that have a core competencies in producing products have differently pain points and needs compared to the startups or the SMEs that already can can have core competencies in selling products. So understanding the needs very well, it's become more important to create a service in SME.
Right. So it's very important to understand the needs of the SME because they have a lot of different kind of needs. Depends on what type of SME it is, right? And that's why you can create a very niche product, but it's still scale because there are a lot of problems that is happening in a lot of SME in different categories, right?
Exactly.
I want to ask Italo the same question actually, because you have a lot of portfolios. These ventures have a lot of portfolios in the SME focused startup. So what do you think about this? The same question actually as Agil, like the untapped market of SME. Do you still see some untapped, a niche market that SME, SME that is not yet tapped by startups? Well, Italo?
We talk. I think, for example, Agil, if I'm not mistaken, you focus the fashion SMEs, and because you are focused on serving those market, and I think there is other market like manufacturing SMEs or agri-tech SMEs or aquaculture, fishery. I think there is still a lot of opportunities of investment that I strongly believe there'll be more agri-tech companies, agri-tech startup will be big in Indonesia very soon. Yeah.
Interesting. So, based on your current portfolios as well, Italo, what do you see the SMEs going right now? What kind of path is these SMEs are going, and what type of solutions they can create in regards to that problems happening in SMEs?
Yeah, I think the problem of SME is quite complex. There are some challenge on the funding side, some problem on the supply chain side, some from the marketing side. So I think each startup actually solve its sector of the problem, and not many people actually create assumption that SME has problem in the funding side, but actually not so. It's not right because some have a challenge in managing their supply chain probably, and or managing their marketing activities. And I think from our observation, small medium enterprise doesn't mean they have a problem in the funding, but they have also I think what actually Agil did, for example, is creating something very unique to the market that empower SMEs to have the same sourcing of product with the bigger with the compared to the bigger company. So that's actually one of the case that we invest in practice, because we see the problem that Agil and Dipta actually try to solve is quite solid. Yeah. So
Interesting. I want to go back first, actually, to the fintech space, because we're still talking about market, the maturity of the market, what are the type of market that can still be explored. So, from your experience, William, in serving Indonesian people in verification process, so how did you see the maturity of the Indonesian market in regards to the usage of digital products? Verification is probably something that is sometimes I don't know, it's new to some people, especially if you're serving the unbanked or the newly digital adopting market. So do you think maturity of the digital adoption has been improving from years? And if you were to like release the product 3 years ago, would it be very different from when you released it like this couple of 2 years? Sorry, probably 5 years ago. Sorry.
Yeah,
create a
sure.
contrast.
We can see that the pandemic actually accelerated the digital adaptation for the unbanked populations in Indonesia, and it really helps to for us to introduce and to educate their to use the digital verifications. And yeah, for the maturity, from my perspective, actually, it's still not mature yet. But on the other hand, I saw this as a huge opportunity for us, because there are more problems, there are more solutions that we can provide, so that the maturity of the digital adoptions will become very mature. And yeah, for your questions about if I made the startup like 5 years ago, I don't think that it might work, because 5 years ago, maybe the digital verifications doesn't really
It's not a
important.
big problem.
Yeah, it's not really big problems, and we can see that the pandemic actually made these digital verifications a huge problem, especially in Indonesia, because previously people just want to use the manual verifications, don't really use the digital
Pen and
verification.
paper is still really
Yeah,
strong.
yeah, it's like 5 and 10 years ago. You can see that verifications was done by paper.
The
Yeah.
urgency to use the verification is really accelerated throughout the pandemic situation, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
Very interesting. I want to move on to discussing the sector in general of startups, because I believe some of our investors here would like to know what are the up and rising sectors apart from the SME and the fintech also. So this question will come firstly probably to Italo. So throughout this past years, the startup industry has shifted a lot sector-wise, region-wise, and can you comment on what are the current up and rising sectors in Indonesia? What are the future, and compared to 5 years ago, what are like the new changes and the shifting in regards to the new sector and region of startups in Indonesia?
um, I believe we talk a lot about SMEs, and I believe SMEs, and I also agree with William that because of the COVID, the digital adaptation to the SMEs is really good. So I think SMEs are more mature to use technology now. That's one thing. And the second, personally, I also believe in the agriculture, agri-tech, yeah, fishery, aquacultures. That's actually very interesting sector that's been growing. And probably because of all this e-commerce happen, I think logistic still very important in Indonesia. I think we need more logistics startup to solve many logistics issue in Indonesia. And I think because of the COVID, also health tech shows that we need more health tech companies also in Indonesia. There is very interesting growth that Halodoc and also Good Doctor uh, when they solve the COVID issues. I think those are the sectors that we think we are, but at the end we are sector agnostic at the EV. So opportunity can I mean, a lot of founders has been doing very interesting development of the product for the past 2 years on this COVID. So I think there'll be very unique approach from many startup these days.
Okay. Because you discussed about COVID, about the pandemic situation, I want to ask to Mr. Manuhutu here, what kind of sector of startups do you wish to grow in relation to the pandemic recovery? I think a lot of sectors has been hit hard with the COVID situation. So what do you wish will actually be accelerated? Apart from, I think you discussed about the climate as well before. What kind of sectors do you wish will grow in Indonesia in regards to startups?
Is one, if you look at our budget or our spending, Indonesia spending on health is around 50 billion US dollar or 600 trillion rupiahs year on year, and half of them from the government sector, half of them from the private sector. Now, what the government is planning to do is, since last year, is that we want local companies, either startups or SMEs, to produce products for medicines, non-medical equipment that cater the need of the population. And if you see at most of the medical devices, most of them are imported, and the government we want to produce more local products. I think this is an opportunity either for the startups or SMEs to produce medical equipment that are needed. One area that we can do is through the government e-procurement system, and through that government e-procurement last year alone, we made affirmative actions that shifted the certain amount of procurement around $500 million. Instead of buying imported products, we use the $500 million around $5 million procurement are shifted to local products, and we want to grow now year on year. And the government spending on health issues is around 20 to 30 billion US dollar. I think this is the untapped market, and if the Indonesian startup can produce equipment, medical equipment or medicines, then we can come up with an affirmative action that is already conducted by the Minister Pak Budi. That is, first is if there is Indonesian companies, either startup or large-scale companies, can produce medicines or medical equipment in Indonesia, then the government will purchase it, even if it is 20 to 25% higher than the imported products, because it is allowed according to the regulation. Why do we do that? I think we want to create this ecosystem. And second, I think the issue of climate change, this is the one that you might want to, the startup wants to deal with the issue. Third is on the tourism sector, and the tourism sector will probably rebound in 2023, 2024, and this is an opportunity because when we talk about tourism, we talk Indonesia is shifting from mass tourism to quality tourism, and when we talk about the quality tourism, is more about how to create a good experience for the consumers and how they can spend more their time in Indonesia, and of course their spending. And that, I think, three areas I think the startups or the other sector can collaborate with the government. Definitely, we want them to participate in our economy, in growing our economy.
Very interesting. Yes. So health, tourism is really sectors that we wish to grow in the future due to this pandemic recovery situation. So in regards to sector as well, I really want to know from both of you, the founders here, what do you think? The same question as Italo probably. What kind of sectors do you think will succeed in the future for startups in Indonesia? I think William, you mentioned before about niche neobanks. Are there things that you think will, succeed in the future? Especially you deal with a lot of fintechs. What kind of sectors that will, rise, do you think, in the future?
Yeah, from my perspective, the fintech for special needs might be one of the categories, and also I see that recently the blockchain-based startup for cryptocurrency, NFT, digital asset. There will be more and more startups that focus on that area. And from what I've seen from US market or Euro market, there will be a huge opportunity, especially for Indonesians to build those startups in Indonesia. And maybe the last thing is around the deep tech. I haven't seen many startups focus on the deep tech, solve complex problems in Indonesia, and maybe in the like 3 or 4 years in the future, I see that there might be a good opportunity for Indonesian startups.
Interesting. What do you think, Adrian, in regards to the sectors that might, grow in the future?
Yeah, the problem of SME will even getting harder over time. After having such a lot of improvements, it will bring more difficult problems to come, right? And what we see in the future, the next big thing for SME and supply chain perspective is, I think, the implementation of IoT. Implementation of IoT primarily in the production system, because for example, now we help the SMEs to encourage them using data analytics to get or to have better decision making. And the next step is we need to make the production system more efficient with more sophisticated hardware and software implement to the manufacturers. And also agree with Williams. I think SME supply chains will need to get more exposed by machine learning and artificial intelligence. It helps the founders, the company, to get better decision making. And even though right now, from our experience, company that already tap into a practice ecosystem, so the SME can focus on their core competencies. We have some success stories that only within 1.5 years, the SME can grow 25 times because they can just focus on the core competencies and outsource all the non-core activities, which is back-end operations, to us. Imagine that if we can put more in-depth detail analysis, including market analysis, artificial intelligence there, how to forecasting the demand production to enhance the production, then it would be the growth would be even more faster, and the company could be run in the more efficient.
Interesting. Okay. So probably because if anybody wants to ask any questions, I would like to remind again, you can chat in chat box or you can raise your hand. But I do have a question that I want to ask for everybody here, since this is I think the main topic for Jejala Indonesia about investability. So I want to ask probably to Italo first. Why do you think, Italo, it's time for foreign investors to actually invest in Indonesian startup? Saying we have discussed the market, we have discussed SME and in fintech infrastructure as one of the biggest sectors right now. We have discussed the future sectors. We have discussed the digital adaptability of Indonesian market. So why do you think they have to invest now?
I think they should invest yesterday, not now. Yeah, I think Indonesia. I think from what's the Indonesia now, actually, in this COVID situation, we kind of slowing down because of the COVID situation. But after this COVID, we're going to grow really, really fast, the economy of Indonesia. I think I can experience by myself in living in Indonesia, having all these startups like Tokopedia, GoFood, Halodoc, Ruang Guru, empowering how Indonesians fight with the COVID. I think we are very lucky to have all these startups in Indonesia. And these startups are actually being set up way before COVID. Yeah. So we are very lucky. We have all these founders that actually prepare this. And when COVID happened, we can easily buy food. We can easily doing e-commerce. We can easily doing telemedicine. We can easily bring our kid online learnings. Yeah. So I think that's actually very lucky. Yeah. And I experienced living outside Indonesia when there's COVID, and actually it's quite terrible. So I think shows that the pain point of the consumer of Indonesia being solved by these startups. And I think Indonesia is a typical country that we are actually quite fast in adopting new approach, new technology. And I believe with after COVID era, with all this growth, and I also agreed with Paulo, the Indonesian government are super fast and super supportive to the digital economy. And I never see a government from my 22 years experience in this industry has the very fast approaching this digital economy. And I think especially this year, yeah, Indonesia will be hosting the G20 as well. And I think will be interesting. Indonesia will show to the world how this startup actually change our life, and also empower our SMEs and also the enterprises. So I think in investing in Indonesia is now actually with Ace Ventures we're going to close a new fund, and which is quite big, and I think will be very interesting for 2022.
Interesting. So it makes me really wait for G20. What's going to happen with the startup in Indonesia for G20? I really hope it's something very interesting. So the same question I want to ask for Mr. Manuhutu. So do you think why today, now is the time for our VCs around the world to invest in Indonesian startups?
What Italo said, like if you look at our background, Jejala, you might think this is a startup. A startup is a startup, Indonesian startup that initiated. If you look at the stage, but then it is a government initiative taken, which means that the government is trying to emulate the views and the philosophy of the startup, namely to act fast and to solve the problem quickly. Now, the larger issue is that, as I said earlier, Indonesia will become the 7th largest economy by 2030, and will be part of the 5th largest economy by 2040 or 2050. So if you invest into 2030, that will be too late. That will be too expensive for you to invest. Now this is the time. And if you invest in Indonesia, which means you are investing in the 40% of the total population of Southeast Asia. So Indonesia is the place for you to invest. Now, and as in my earlier presentation, 90 million of Indonesian, young Indonesian by 2030. And this 19 million means they are market, no, not only market, but they are talents. Now, in 2022, this year, we are going to produce more than 3,000 talents in the game industry. So we are investing that 3,000 talents per year until 2024. What does it mean? It means that we are going to produce more startups in the game industries so that it can tap on the market. And second is, as earlier said, that Indonesian society tends to be adaptive. You look at Indonesia 10 years ago or 20 years ago, people like to watch the telenovela, from Latin America. These days, we love everything about Korean culture. Yeah, the key of adaptability is open-minded, and I think we, as a society, we are very much open-minded. And the question is how the startups or the SMEs or any stakeholders can tap into that. And to tap to that, the key question is invest in talents, and talents. That's the new gold, mine. You can invest in other sectors, but if you don't have talent, that will be the end of it. That's why if you look countries like in Germany and others, they're investing more and more in their talents. And this is one area I think the government is very concerned, and also the private sector. And we have to invest in talents and increase the percentage of our R&D budget.
Interesting. So the market is there. The problem is there. We have a lot of founders, but back again, we need a lot of good talents in order to build a very good product. And this investment will really, really help in building our talents and also building a very good product with great talents behind. So a very interesting talk today. We discussed a lot about SME supply chain, about fintech. We discussed how actually the market of Indonesia has a really high digital adaptability and also is very good in a good market in terms of they are very good in word of mouth, because once you create a good product, they can actually share to a lot of the other customers of that product to use the same product. So it's really good market. It has a very high population, growing GDP as well. And it's very interesting for everybody that wants to invest, because if you're too late, it's going to be very expensive to invest in startups later. So come now, invest in Indonesia. And so I want to say thank you to everybody here. Thank you to Adrian. Thank you to William. Thank you to Italo and Mr. Manuhutu as well for becoming our speakers today. It's very insightful view on Indonesia's market in regards to SME supply chain, fintech infrastructure, and our investability in terms of startups. Thank you to all startups and investors present today. Don't forget that we will start our virtual matchmaking. The Jubilee will be open tomorrow, 3rd of January until 28th of January 2021. To all unregistered venture capitals, you can still register to be one of our VC partners by accessing bit.ly/Jejala registration, capital JEJALA, capital R for the registration. And our team will directly send the invitation through email to join our networking platform. See you in the networking session. Goodbye, and we'll see you again. Thank you.